Hi, I'm Sunil Kedrali, Executive Vice President of Talent Strategy and Solutions at PeerPoint. We are a global recruiting company with offices in the US, Europe, and Latin America. We serve clients like Juniper Networks, Varian Medical Systems, Symantec, Red Bull, and others. We are strong believers in using science in the recruiting practice and our approaches. We work with our clients on optimizing not only recruiting, but retention as well for better ROI. With us today is Dr. Paul Zak. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Sunil. It's a pleasure to be here.
How would you apply neuroscience to hiring?
Right. So this is, I think, where the art and the science can complement each other.
Yeah.
So we always think about fit. And so when we hire, we almost never hire blind. We don't just read a letter and go, oh, yeah, this is a guy for me. Right? We actually go and talk to that person. Or we count on important counselors like PeerPoint to actually vet those people so we can have a sense that they are who they are, their resume is what it says it is, and they can do what they say they can. Part of that fit can be determined neuroscientifically. So we found in places like Zappos or Red Bull, where you really want people who are highly engaged, having a sense of empathy is important. So we've actually studied neurochemicals associated with empathic responses. Do I respond to people around me? Or am I closed down so I'm not taking in this information? So even from a leadership perspective, I think of that empathy channel as giving me lots of information about the human beings, right? So we are emotional creatures. We care about what people think about us, even though we say we don't.
Sure.
And so how do we measure that? So one thing is to start poke on that empathy level. Well, do you respond when your coworker needs a day off because their daughter or son is sick? Are you engaged in the process of organization? So I think it's person, organization, and project. So all three of those need to line up. So from the neuroscience perspective, the neuroscience is giving us insights on how the brain works relative to how you engage in those that sort of three-dimensional environment that I put you in now. So it could be that you're a super engaging person. You've had these employees, I have too. Yeah. Super engaging person, not a good fit for what we're doing.
Yeah.
Or
it could be a good fit for something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for those people, you want to retain them and try to move them into a different project or a different business. It could be that you're well trained for this, but this is just not a project that engages you. It's too easy, it's not challenging, or it's too difficult. You really don't have the background for this. Also not a good fit. And the easiest people to sort of weed out are people who are not trained and are not engaged by this process for whatever reason. I call those easy fires, right? So you hire a person, they don't care, they don't show up, they don't do the work, they're out. Yeah. I think the more difficult case where the neuroscience can come into play is I really want people who are going to be challenged, engaged, and happy about this. So we've now mentioned the word happiness twice, but I want you to have this sense of what my colleague Mike Csikszentmihalyi calls flow, where I'm actually so engaged in my project, I'm losing track of time.
You escape, in a sense. You escape yourself,
in a sense. You escape, that's right. And so Csikszentmihalyi has shown that people have more flow at work than they do at recreation. Because at work, if it's well designed, I have a project that's challenging, I have a clear endpoint, I have a clear goal, and I often have a team around me that are going to help me accomplish that goal. Now, an important part of that in the neuroscience is once I accomplish that goal, I need to reset. Yeah. So if I constantly give you project after project after project and don't give you a chance to reset, then I'm going to induce chronic stress, not good. So the challenge stress, very engaging, very important, happiness inducing, but this chronic stress is not bad for our health.
So Paul, when using neuroscience in the hiring process, what are some traits that recruiters should be looking for?
So we found a couple of those, both experimentally and in our field studies at for-profit businesses. One of the key ones is a sense of reciprocation. So we see that's associated with people's empathic responses. So it's very easy to say in an interview, oh yes, when my coworkers need me to fill in, I always do. And we don't know. So actually when we run experiments, actually look at the brain responses to tasks, work-related tasks like solve this problem under pressure, under time pressure, work with your colleagues to come up to a creative problem and solve that problem. We actually find that what people say and what their brains do are often quite different.
Interesting.
So what you really want to see is what their actions are, not what they tell you, right? So this is like getting a resume and presuming everything on there is correct without calling the references. You wouldn't do that if you were serious about hiring somebody. Yeah. So ask them about their previous experiences. Tell me a time that you really felt you had engaged with another human being. Tell me about an activity that you do that serves other people. Right? What you're trying to get to is, are you going to make this organization, this project, this job really important to you? Not just I'm clocking in at 8 and getting out at 5, but am I going to put my heart and soul into this? And so if you find someone who, I don't know, twice a month volunteers in a soup kitchen, or is active in their church and helping mentor low-income students, someone who actually has a passion, that's actually very important. We find that's an indicator which is consistent with the way the brain works, in which people are willing to engage. And in these work-related tasks, they're more productive. So now we have a nice kind of ROI rationale for trying to find people who are emotionally engaged in what they're doing. At work, I can't tell because I haven't hired you yet, but see if they're emotionally engaged in other tasks.
Interesting, interesting. It's not just, it's interesting because it's also authenticity. It's engagement and a certain level of authenticity in the way a candidate can answer questions. Would you agree with that? And how would you identify, or how would you help to gauge that authenticity in a particular candidate as well?
That's a great question. And you know, the authenticity has to go both ways, right? So if I'm a recruiter or a manager or leader, and I'm not actually living up to what I say I'm doing, they're going to pick that up on me. So I think what you want to do is try to read that person, right? So you're not going to take blood samples like we do, but you want to actually see how they respond to oddball questions. So that's one of the techniques I like a lot. Is
what's
the oddball
one
question,
of your favorite oddball questions?
Right? So, you know, tell me the most unusual thing about yourself. So I had a guy tell me once, I have really long second toes. And I said, cool, let me see.
Yeah.
And he took
I was
his
going to
shoe
ask you to do that.
Right?
Yeah,
So here's a guy who's so comfortable, and that's a weird answer, but he's so comfortable, very likable guy, very productive, happy to have him in my lab, right? Quirky, funny, but also highly engaged, right? And he said, I never told anybody that before. I was embarrassed about it, but you asked me that. Now, if he said, well, you know, I didn't cut my fingernail last night. I don't know. Something boring. I'm not sure I want that guy. So, you know, the famous Google question, have you been to Burning Man? That's kind of the thing I want to see. Like, are you comfortable in your own skin? And if you are, I want to make sure you know I'm comfortable in my own skin, too. You going to tell me something weird? Yeah, I can share something weird about myself, too.
Interesting. That's great. That's great. You know, just kind of maybe taking from that, I'm sure you've seen various assessment technologies and different assessments. Are there any particular type of assessments that you've seen that you think blend themselves well to the neuroscientific methodology that you're advocating?
Yeah, not so much. I think some of the Gallup products are actually pretty good. Kind of in frustration because we have a lot of companies coming to us asking them, how do we assess trust? How do we see if people are engaged? We actually developed a tool we call OFACT, or O-for-oxytocin, this chemical I discovered that makes you trust people and makes you engage with others.
Please tell us a little more about that. I know our clients would love to hear a little bit more about that.
That'd be great. So it's an online tool that you can use for any size company that assesses not only organizational trust, but the 8 constituent factors that create trust. So we talked about challenge before. One of those is challenge. Are you engaged with a challenge? And so it's based on the neuroscience we've done for a dozen years in the lab. People can reach out to me and they can use it if they'd like to. They can contact you. You can help them find it.
Definitely.
Right? So this is grounded in really leading edge neuroscience in which we take multiple measurements of people in the laboratory and in the field from a variety of companies who are trying to understand how to create the great organizational culture that companies like Zappos or Red Bull have. So it can be done, and I think it can be done by lots of different organizations. What we find, the punchline of this is that in organizations with high trust, combined with a sense of purpose, you know, not that we sell the best product at the lowest price. How do you improve people's lives? This is right out of Edwards Deming's playbook. So why are you in business? Why is your organization or your nonprofit? What do you really do that improves the world? How do you help people? People understand that and they have high trust. We find great joy at work, term we talked about, and also low turnover. We found now lower healthcare costs. Boy, that's a big one.
I was thinking about that too.
That's right. And higher productivity in these tasks that we give people to real employees in businesses that are tasks like they do normally can actually do those. So when trust is high and purpose is high, people are highly engaged and everything starts to flow.
Paul, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, your insight, and your knowledge on this subject. Thank you very much again.
I really appreciate the invitation.